I have some introductory remarks, but I want to be conscious of the mayor's time. And Mayor Hales has been kind enough to join us. And so, Mayor, I'd like to start off with you, please. We welcome you and thank you for being here and spending some time with us.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to stop by this evening as you get launched in this really important piece of the city business. And I want to thank all of you for accepting these appointments to the COAB. It's an important responsibility, and I'm here to help get you launched. Thank you, Amy. I'll speak up so I can be heard. I know you have a real packed agenda tonight, so I'm certainly not going to make a long speech, but I want to say a few things. One, that your job is to help us as a community get this right. Get the relationship between the police bureau and the community right, get our practices right, get the understanding of what works and doesn't work right. And I hope you know that you have not just my blessing and not just the city council's blessing, but the blessing of the United States government in this relationship that we have through a settlement agreement to inquire and to probe and to ask questions and to do your work in total independence. And that's an assurance that you need to know is there, that your job is to exercise independent judgment and to give your advice to our community liaison that we have structured here under this agreement. So that Justice DeMunis and his technical partners in our team are here to work with you so that you give the community and your community's leaders unfiltered advice. And that is your role. And I know you all see that role, but I want you to know that I support it. Your job is to evaluate reforms we've already made, to identify additional improvements or changes that we should make to help us communicate better with the community that we serve, to engage in authentic relationships with all the diverse communities that we're responsible to serve. We need to learn what people need from us as a police bureau and as city government, and to better communicate what we're doing and how we do our work and why. So I hope you know that scope and that freedom is real, and that your charge to give unvarnished, unfiltered advice to me as the police commissioner, to the chief of police, to the bureau, and to all of us who share this responsibility is complete. So I really appreciate your willingness to do this work. It is really important. I am personally committed to a sound relationship between the Portland Police Bureau and the people we serve. I see, as I said in my City Club speech a week ago, so many daily examples of great work by the Police Bureau, of true human concern for the people that we serve, but we also know that there is force involved and there has been injustice, and we need to use that force only when necessary and try to achieve justice in every encounter, in every moment of our work. So that's a challenge for any police bureau. It's one that we know we have too, and that I believe we here in Portland can do well. So I want to thank you all for your willingness to serve. I look forward to your work and to your advice and to the progress that we make together. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We've got a packed agenda. I'll do my best to try to keep us with that on track here. I want to thank everybody initially for your participation, particularly with regard to the proposed bylaws. And I'll try to kind of take us through an orderly process when we get to the amendments to the bylaws. We are being filmed tonight, and I think also it's being streamed live. When our website is up and fully functioning, which, by the way, our initial website had over 900 hits since it went up on Friday, which is pretty remarkable, actually. But we will be archiving our meetings so that they're a public record, can be accessed by the public. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. In a related vein, I've been working really hard since I retired not to get too legal with folks, but it occurred to me while we were having some email exchanges that discussions by a group like this, and the city attorneys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if those email discussions stray into policy, we could have some trouble with the open meetings law. And so I think what I'm encouraging people is, if when we're going to make requests for records or things like this, that one approach would be to vet them through the COCL so that we have an orderly process for what we're trying to do here. That's not to tell anybody that you can't do something, but it's to try to just get an orderly process, and that's something we can talk about. There's a sign-up sheet over here for members of the public who wish to make comments during the public comment time, so I wanted to make sure that people do that. And where's Brad? He was here. Okay, so that makes my point. You remember Brad, the young man who was here before and is here to assist us. So I wanted to encourage everybody to make use of those services when they're needed. And Brad and I are actually going to have we will meet every Monday at my office at the Rosewood Initiative, just to go over anything that we can do to facilitate what we're doing here for anyone who needs anything.
Question? Can I just be clear?
Yes.
So I know Bill and Ellen both said that they could be of resource for the group. So are you saying that we need to go through the COCO directly to make those requests to Bill and Ellen?
Yeah, I think that's a better process. Just I'm not being critical of anybody's wanting information. I'm just trying to, I think a sort of a good process here would be for us to go through the COCO. I certainly have some experience about the requests, and the reason I'm saying that, if you look at the settlement agreement says that the PPB, the city, the DOJ, they need to assist us, and they need to provide things for us. So if we do it in this official fashion, we don't get into having to make public records requests, which if we do that on our own, theoretically, the city, the PPB could say, well, you're making an individual request that perhaps is not closely related to the settlement agreement. I think we won't have that problem when we're doing it in that fashion. Having been around the government for 35 years, when you make individual public records requests, the government is entitled to charge you money because of the things that go on, and the settlement agreement actually gives us a way so we don't have to worry about that. And so that's why I'm asking that we do it that way. Okay. Did Brad come back in? All right. Well, when he shows up. Now, the second thing is, you remember my opening statement at the last thing that I, at 25 years on the appellate bench, I had never used a gavel. So I know everybody felt sorry for me, so we now have gavels, thanks to Christy Jameson, our COAB member. And I would like her to give some explanation about how these operate, other than me striking my head with the...
Thank you, Judge Jimenez. So as a member of the Portland Commission on Disability and a direct COAB member, one of the ways that we manage our meetings, which increases our collective literacy around disability issues, which is a part of our members that have hearing impairments and other disabilities, it's really important to not have crosstalk and to be patient, and there's other communication styles that we're not always aware of that matter, into including people, or including everyone's voice in the public process. And so what I suggested is that the Portland Commission on Disability, in supporting this process, that we offer the gavels that we use in our meeting to manage our meeting. And what this is, it's a fun. I mean, all get a gavel, it's awesome. But it's a way to raise your hand, and it's also a fantastic way for the person that's facilitating the meeting to know who asked the first, second, third, and fourth question. So the parking lot, it doesn't get too backed up, and they know what's going on, and they can help manage it. And it's also really helpful to the interpreters to be able to manage their process too, because we want to make sure that every voice is included. So I'm gonna, as a gift from the Portland Commission on Disability, I'm gonna pass these around, and so please keep them with you and bring them to every meeting for the COABs, the members and the alternates, because it's very important, and this is how we'll vote. This is how we'll raise our hand.
Thank you. I think it's fair to say this is really a work in process, sort of the idea we're trying to fix the airplane while we're flying it. So there's going to be, we haven't figured out yet exactly what the framework for our work and process is yet, and so we'll be working on that. But this is a start to get us, I should have held it.
First question.
Yes.
Please don't hit your neighbor.
Okay. And I probably should have pointed out, because our table is full, the record can reflect we've got a quorum. So we don't, and I doubt that is ever going to be a problem. So are there any just initial, anything about my comments that need any other clarification? For example, like Sharon asked, is there any? Good. Okay. So our next thing on our agenda was we had board member introductions. Well, we did all that at the training. Is there anybody here who wasn't here, who's a COAB member, and didn't get to give their introduction? I think we got everybody.
Human Rights Commissioner. Just glad to be here once again, and maybe I'll use one of these here gavels. But yeah, thanks for having me. Kind of just glad to be back in the building again.
Paul. My name is Paul Meyer, police officer from Portland on the COAB. Thank you. And been a police officer for about going on 23 years, and currently in the training division full-time, and was one of our lead instructors for a long time. Thank you.
So I think we have everyone. So what I would like to do is use that time to have the other members of the COCL introduce themselves to you, give you something of their background, and so that you get to know all of us who are involved in this process. And our leader is Dr. Rosenbaum. And Dennis, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you. Well, I'm honored to have Judge Simunis on this team because he's been fantastic already in a lot of ways. So I hope that you guys can benefit from his help as well. I'm Dennis Rosenbaum. I'm in Chicago at this time. I'm from Portland. I grew up here. Lived outside of Portland a ways, but went to school here, went to Central Catholic, and it's great to come back. I mean, part of our selfish reason for doing this is to help the city of Portland. I care greatly about my hometown, and but I've been studying police and community interactions for more than 3 decades, so we have some experience. I've been riding in police cars in dozens of cities since the late 1970s. And so I have a lot of experience. I have enormous sympathy for the job that the police do, but I also have tremendous compassion for the community and what they have to deal with and how they're interacting with the police. And so there's a lot of interesting issues here we could talk about, but I won't right now. I take the role of the community extremely seriously. I think that this is a unique situation in Portland. A lot of these programs and consent decrees around the country do not have the same role that the community has here of playing a critical role in the oversight. From looking at the people who've signed up, honored to be part of this process because you're all so talented and so well-educated and have such interesting backgrounds. It's a very fascinating group, and I'm sure that you're going to make significant contributions to this process. So I'm going to just stop with that. And I forgot to say I'm a professor at the University of Illinois in Chicago, director of the Center for Research in Law and Justice there, and blah, blah, blah. So I've been teaching students and at all levels for a long time.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Amy.
That's right. I'm Amy Watson. I'm also at University of Illinois at Chicago, but I'm in the College of Social Work, and I'm a social worker by training. I started my career as a probation officer working on a team that had a specialized caseload of people with mental illness, and that's sort of how I got started. Been doing research with sort of at the intersection of the criminal justice and mental health systems for about 15 years. I've done a lot of work on stigma and mental illness, and then also the criminal justice system's response to people with mental illness. And I have a couple studies going right now looking specifically at police response to mental illness, where we're getting the police officers' perspectives, but also the person with lived experience and how they're experiencing that process as well. So I've been doing a lot of work trying to look at both sides, and I think it's really useful to kind of bring that together then. And I think this is a really exciting opportunity to work with a great group of people to really create a model that can really move things forward.
And Tom?
My name's Tom Kristoff. I'm a student at the University of Illinois Chicago. While getting my master's, I worked with the creators of the Memphis model of CIT. And then when I went to UIC, I've been working with Dr. Rosenbaum really on the police procedural justice aspect of it. So this, this opportunity really is a nice merging of those two things. And I'll also just echo what they said, that this is an exciting opportunity, and I'm very happy to be a part of it.
So I know that you're on YouTube, but are you on YouTube, Dr. Watson? No. You're not? Okay. What about you, Mr. Christoph?
I hope not, no.
This is a great venue to brush up.
What am I on there?
Oh, you have a whole bunch of lectures. It's been wonderful, actually. I'm old school too.
Dr. Rosenbaum was being very modest, but I'll just say something. He'll be testifying in front of the President's Commission, if I have the words correctly, next Friday. You can describe what it is, but I think it's important for them to know that.
The President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. As you know, President Obama created this task force after Ferguson. And so I've actually I'm chair of the Division of Policing of the American Society of Criminology, and so I have a group of scholars that are about a dozen people that are giving testimony and giving their advice to this task force about what needs to be done. And then my punishment for that is I have to go testify before this group. But anyway, so anything we can learn in Portland too. I think Portland has potential, frankly, to be a great model for the nation in a lot of ways. And so that's exciting. I think there's a lot of issues about compliance here, but there's also a potential to move way beyond that.
All right, we're going to move to our next agenda item. There some further background on the civil action and the settlement agreement. So we're pleased to welcome this evening Jonas Geisler is here, Assistant U.S. Attorney from Washington, D.C., the Civil Rights Division, and Adrian Brown, also locally from this Assistant U.S. Attorney. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Adrian was the lead local lawyer, if I've got that right. And Jonas was the Washington, D.C. civil rights person with incredible experience in this area. And so I asked him if he would brief us tonight a little further on his background, what he's looking for with this, what was the intent of the settlement, and where we are. And I think Ms. Brown will also have some comments as we go. Mr. Geisler.
Good evening. I'm Jonas Geisler, I'm a senior trial attorney with the Special Litigation Section of the Civil Rights Division in Washington, D.C. I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you in prior occasions, and I look forward to meeting the rest of you as we work together moving forward. The U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division is about 51 years old. About 20 years ago, Congress passed a statute called 42 U.S.C. Section 14141. It gives the United States Attorney General the authority to bring a civil action on behalf of the United States when the Attorney General has reason to believe that a pattern or practice of violation of constitutional or federal statutory rights exists in law enforcement. For this particular case, a little over 3 years ago, the United States received both an invitation to come and investigate the Portland Police Bureau and also several reports from either local individuals or reports which we gleaned directly from news sources in Portland concerning uses of force. We conducted an investigation that took about 18 months. During the investigation, we had a large sample of use of force reports and reviews, internal affairs reports, and we conducted direct investigations with interviews of individuals that had contact with the Portland Police Bureau. From all of that information, we processed those uses of force which we deemed to be objectively unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment standard. We used the assistance of police consultants, individuals who have been law enforcement officers as chiefs of police, really as reform chiefs, for over 30 years. We came to the conclusion that there was reason to believe that the Portland Police Bureau used excessive force in certain instances, and those generally centered around the use of force against people experiencing mental illness. We wrote a letter. There's the findings letter. Most of you have probably read that letter. It is posted on our website. We negotiated with the city a settlement agreement. We filed the agreement with the consent of the city. That agreement, which gives birth to this group, is innovative. In most agreements that the DOJ does across the country, there is either a court monitor who works for the court or the DOJ itself that monitors. This is new. Each of you are playing a foundational role right now in a different model that could change policing nationally. This is a community monitored agreement in many respects. DOJ will still monitor the compliance or non-compliance and report back to the court. We will rely, however, upon the information from this group, both in the monitoring and in the relationship between the Portland Police Bureau and the people of Portland. I thank each one of you for taking the large dedication of your time and having the interest to be here today and going forward. It is a large time commitment. I know each of you have important and busy lives. You have families and jobs, and for you to give your time speaks volumes about you. For DOJ, I will be coming out here as frequently as possible from DC to here. There is a local presence, however, that many of you have already seen. Unlike some of our cases that are run only out of DC, in this case, the United States Attorney's Office has played an active role in every step of the investigation. Adrian Brown was here at the beginning. David Knight took over for about a year on the ground, while Adrian still participated in DC when she was stationed there. She'll come back soon, but we still have local presence here today from Adrian, from other participants in the U.S. Attorney's Office, including Billy Williams. If you have questions for DOJ, you're welcome to filter those through the COCL. You're welcome to contact me directly. I will do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible. If I'm on travel for another case, it may take a few days.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I recognize a lot of faces, but many of you I haven't met yet, and I look forward to meeting you. I am here at the local United States Attorney's Office. I work for Amanda Marshall, who's the United States Attorney. As Jonas mentioned, I've been on loan, so to speak, to DC for a year working on civil rights policy issues nationally, but I have continued to remain involved with this case so I could jump right back into it when I come back, which will be this spring. The only thing I want to add to Jonas's comments about the creation of this board was that it came out of a direct comment that we received in our 100+ interviews we did with community members, individual community members. This suggestion arose out of that, and it's just fantastic to be at this point where we're actually seeing it come to fruition. So I want to just put that in context. I think it's important to note that we are constantly seeking community input and feedback on this process. And this was the result of seeking that input and feedback throughout the investigation. But the investigation and the filing of the settlement agreement is the beginning of the process, not the end. It's the first step. And we, on behalf of Amanda Marshall and the U.S. Attorney's Office, will continue to be active partners, and we will continue to be involved in this process. And I thank you for inviting us to attend this meeting.
Are there any questions for either Jonas or Adrian that relate to this background question? B?
Jonas, I didn't quite hear you. Was that 14, 1?
14141.
14141. So there was no number before the dot.
42 United
Yeah.
States Code,
Yeah.
section 14141.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your work.
I just want to make a comment particularly about USA, I believe, David Knight, who I was able to successfully hijack into meeting me at civil commitment hearings in Multnomah County. And I think that I just want to honor that work because that the U.S. Attorney's Office was willing and open to observe those proceedings. And for anyone around this table that's a part of this process, I think it's very important to understand the civil commitment process for persons with mental illness. First of all, this judge is not an appointed judge. It's the only one that is not appointed, and the process is frequently overturned, more so than any other sort of caseload. And these are persons that end up in front of police officers and other public safety officers and in the emergency department than any other group of persons. And I just want to appreciate David Knight's openness, and I think that is a reflection of the U.S. Attorney's efforts here. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Corey, would you like a seat at the table here? We'd like to get you at the table, so we'll make some room to, okay? Thank you. Okay, now we get to the little bit of the tricky part. We move to our adoption of the COAB bylaws. Couple of comments in advance. I suspect that many of you who have served on other groups like this have been frustrated by saying, okay, we're going to take 3 months to figure out what our bylaws are. So my goal here was to speed up this process by submitting a proposed draft for comments. So we got some great comments. I have created a draft that you have in front of you that incorporates many of those comments. Not all of them, because we needed to get this printed before we had all of them. So what I have two things I propose here. One is to take us through the bylaws, basically paragraph by paragraph. Obviously, we'll go through the ones where there are no comments. We'll speed through. Then we'll get to the ones with the comments. What I'd like us all to say, do we have consensus, since we haven't passed the bylaws yet, that we would do it and the provisions by simple majority vote? That seems like a easy way to proceed, and I'd like to see if everybody would agree that we would do this by consensus. That seemed, like, I'm sorry, by majority vote. Okay with everyone? Good. Majority, right? Yeah, majority. Okay. All right. So if everybody have this draft that starts out on the first page, and someone was kind enough to point out that it isn't the Community Oversight and Advisory Board, that it is the Community Oversight Advisory Board. And I actually think that was a very welcome comment and very smart, because the word "and" could actually have some meaning. So I suspect that we all agree with that, with what we did there. All right. Now, so we've got the name figured out. Now to the purpose. there were numerous comments about the language that was, and you'll see the strikeout that said especially related to police interactions. And so I took from everyone's comments, I changed the language to say including but not limited to police use of force and interactions with people who are or are perceived by police officers to be suffering from a mental health crisis. So I think this is a time to see those people who offered comments about this, whether this captures your intended comment and whether the group would agree with that language. Tom?
That was essentially my language, and I think it gets to the issue that the reason we're here is that excessive force was used. And I think it's important to have that in the purpose.
So I don't know how this would work best, so,
Well, if you have a comment on this section, on that language, then that's what we'll take.
so under purpose?
On
Okay, so I'll just read, is that all right?
Sure.
So, the COAB will oversee, advise, and make recommendations regarding the implementation of the settle agreement, comma, at minimum between the U.S. Department of Justice, parentheses, here in DOJ, and the City of Portland that requires the restructuring and reform of the Portland Police Bureau, here in PBB, policies and training, comma, at minimum, comma, especially any and all matters related to the pattern and practice of excessive use of force in police interactions with people who are or are perceived by police officers to be experiencing a mental health crisis.
And we can find your comments.
And I actually brought 6 total, and I'm willing to share 5 with anybody else, because I love trees.
There's only 5 copies. How do we deal with that?
In your packet, though, an earlier version of yours is marked B1 at the,
B1?
in the packet. It's just marked at the bottom as B1. That's the version that you sent this morning. It doesn't have your second comment, so it's the first version of comments.
Where do we find those?
Oh,
That's on the packet, the big packet.
Yeah, you could have
Yes, so
about 3
this-
pages, that'll get to you.
so, so this
B1 is
is
what she just wrote.
Oh.
Yep.
revision number 3,
That's her.
which is minor in comparison to revision number 2, which I don't believe if, in fact, you printed it 5 hours ago, that you would have printed revision number 2. Does that make sense? So I think you got revision 1? Okay, all right. So you're welcome to have revision number 2, if you, or 3 rather, if you'd like,
This isn't accurate.
which I
Which one?
understand is
This one's
problematic,
not
but I only
accurate.
have so much
Yeah, I
print
don't think it made
and
it for the
ink.
printer.
Oh,
I
okay.
apologize, I use my laser printer next time.
Maybe. Tom, since the language was yours at the beginning, do you have a reaction, something we can try to do constructively with these comments about this?
And if you want to visually see this, Tom, if that might be helpful to you?
It's in the packet, right? B1 on.
There's additional
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm wondering if we can
Anybody?
ask for an explanation for the suggested change of language. Because I think we may be spending a lot of time on the details of
Yeah,
the
that's
various versions, but what's the thinking behind it would be helpful.
Rabbi, I think that's a great idea. Tom, maybe you could start first with why you wanted to change, and then V, can you give an explanation of your reasons? Because I really want us to find some common ground here. Then we'll get to you, Sean.
Again, the reason we're here isn't because people who are living with mental illness are not receiving treatment or respect or care they need. ultimately, we're here because there was a pattern and practice of unconstitutional force being used against people with mental illness or perceived mental illness. And I think that needs to be in the purpose, so we don't forget why we're here. I think that V's suggestion of adding the pattern and practice language is fine. It's consistent with what the DOJ found to have happened in terms of the excessive force. But something like that, I think, needs to be in the purpose statement.
Perfect, awesome, concur.
I had a question.
Yes, Sharon, I'm
In
sorry.
regards to the fact that throughout the document, there's nothing referring to AMA Coalition and Justice Reform in it?
And that we'll get to that next.
Okay.
Yes, Bud.
Section 140B of the settlement agreement calls out as responsibility of the COAB that we recommend additional actions to the COCL and the parties. And I guess my question is whether that opens the COAB to a much broader scope than just mental health and illness. And so I think it might be important that we include that opportunity here to make recommendations on additional actions.
Okay. All right. Rabbi?
Again, I'd like an explanation for the change between suffering and experiencing. And I'd like to also question, and really as a question, the word crisis is that feels to me to be limiting, but I'm curious if others agree.
Yes, I agree.
V?
So, Renee, if I could answer your question?
Please.
So I think there's a vast, vast difference between those who are doing the perceiving and those who are experiencing the moments. So specifically, if I were involved or experiencing a psychotic moment, I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as suffering. And I think that's important to know and to understand too. That's why. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And the question on the word crisis, which was not in your change, but I'm just curious if that's an appropriate word.
Well, I'll just tell you when I drafted the bylaws, I just took it from the settlement agreement. That was. All right. May I make a suggestion that we're going to, at 7, we'll take a little break. I will try to come up with some words that capture everything that was said here, and so that we don't spend a tremendous amount of time on this one thing, and see if we can come to an agreement about that. So let me address the question that Sharon brought up. There was an email from a representative of the Albina Ministerial Alliance noting, and I think Senator Gordley passed that on to me, and I also got it direct from Joanne Hardesty, that there was no mention in the bylaws of the Albina Ministerial Alliance. And I may not do this justice by way of background, but certainly in the history of this process, the AMA has played a key role in where we find ourselves today. They were given status by the federal judge in the litigation, and they signed a memo of understanding called a collaborative agreement with the City of Portland and the United States through the Department of Justice. So I think there is a legitimate question about that, and I took the time today to draft something that includes them in this process, if you will. And what the bylaws are you know, they're basically to guide our process here. They're not really about our substantive actions other than our votes. But I think given the significant role that they played in the history of bringing us to this spot, the bylaws could reflect this. And so I have written a sentence that I hope, and we can, again, we may have to take this up in the public comment period, but I'd like everyone to hear what, and this comes from the memo of understanding, which many of you, I'm sure, have not seen, and I had actually not, it wasn't in my conscious thought when I was drafting the bylaws. But I would propose, and I think we'll end up tabling this, but I would propose, and Amy Ruiz, who's helping us facilitate this, will take my words down here so we can get it. I would propose adding a second sentence where we have purpose. Okay, so I would propose adding a sentence that says, the COAB will also advise and collaborate with the Albina Ministerial Alliance, Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, herein referred to as AMA, in accordance with the Memorandum of Understanding entered into between the United States of America, City of Portland, and the AMA. And that recognizes the status that they had and the Memorandum of Understanding that they gave, and acknowledges that in our bylaws. So and that's what I'm proposing. I'm hoping that members of the AMA at the public comment period, we can find out whether that is consistent with what they were looking for in the acknowledgement here. Is that okay if we do it that way? Do people, am I seeing a consensus to do it that way? Yeah, Christie?
Well, to me, that places, whether or not they recognize themselves as equal to the Department of Justice or the other legal players in this, like the City of Portland, what that says to me, your statement, or how that was phrased, to me says that we recognize them as equal to those other parties, and so therefore they are resources to this committee, not necessarily, I mean, we're collaborators, but they're more resource-based collaboration, meaning that we can go to them for information to determine your findings, the COCO's findings about, where we're at with compliance. Is that
That's accurate. That's
okay?
what I'm trying to capture. We may be able to tweak those words a little more to reflect that intent.
I just wanted
But,
people to understand that you're not setting apart AMAC.
No.
It's an equitable status.
Yes. Trying to acknowledge that history and what resource that is. It struck me originally, I thought, well, the AMA will be working with us throughout at our town hall meetings, at our other things, but I think this brings to the fore something that I think is important to them and important to acknowledge. So that's my idea. Rabbi?
It brings to that point, and I think that language seems appropriate to me. But in our purpose, we are limited to mental health crisis, and I'm wondering if we should be inclusive of language of racial bias, and is that within our scope?
Pardon? Yeah, I was going to ask if Jonas or Adrian has a thought on that. I have my own, but
I'd like to reflect on the settlement agreement for a minute.
yeah. Well, I would point out, Rabbi, that one of the things we have included in the functions section, we have included that we'll collaborate with the CPRC and PPB in evaluating PPB's efforts to enhance PPB's demographic data collection regarding the subject of police encounters, including the subject's race, age, sex, and perceived mental health status, and report on PPB's efforts in that regard to the DOJ. That is taken from the settlement agreement, and I think that gets to your point.
If that's the case, then I think it's important that it's be reflected somehow in the purpose statement.
All right.
This was in the co-op application. Pulled from the settlement agreement.
Okay. Is that in our functions?
Don't know.
Okay. I'll work on that language with our whole process here. Yes.
also say we're supposed to be following racial situations or racially biased situations, and then also how the community, I'm losing my thoughts here, how the community is seeing that being represented.
Well, I think that
all of that being represented.
I think your
not
point,
just mental health.
I think that the settlement agreement, as we read it, is broad enough, particularly in the community engagement piece, which I believe is the most important piece we have, is reflected in that piece. Okay. Well, I'd like to move past that then with the idea that when we take our break, I will try to come up with words that we can then deal with in the public comment period. So there really were no, I don't think any comments on the functions. Rochelle? You're correct.
I think I sent you.
Yes, and I answered it, now I forgot.
Under function, we're going to be collaborating with and soliciting information and getting input from a variety of sources, but two sources that I think maybe were left out are the IPR and CRC, which is the current oversight part of the city's looking at police behavior, and I think they should be included.
To our legal experts,
CPRC is there, but you're not the CRC.
Did you?
I turn your attention to paragraph 146, section D. COAB shall solicit and consider input from the Human Rights Commission's Community Policing Relations Committee, including its work to implement the 2009 PPB Plan to Address Racial Profiling. I think that's the most explicit mention. There's a general powers or general ability provision, but I don't think it explicitly refers to racial profiling.
So I did take that language directly from the settlement agreement, and it is in the functions. Does that get to, Rochelle, to your point? Is that sufficient? Okay, thank you. Any other comments on our function section? I'm sorry, I didn't see Ellen in the back. Did you? You're good? Okay, all right. V?
Bullets, but I put them in numbers. Is that okay?
That's fine.
But we're gonna go by bullets, I guess. So I guess maybe it would be the second bullet, advise and make recommendations to DOJ. Starts out like that. I don't know if you guys have that one. So the end of that sentence, as it stands, is settlement agreement, and I just wanted to add, and on any additional actions.
So is that bullet number 2, make recommendations to GOJ? Is that the sentence you're referring to? Okay, and you wanted to end after settlement agreement?
And on any additional actions.
All right. Is this something that a majority of the group could agree to? I say yes.
Okay. This is going to get laborious, but I'm going to try to read really fast. I have another one. Is that
Okay. We agreed to that one.
Fantastic. This one reads, advise the PPB Chief, Police Commissioner, Portland City Council, Albina Ministerial Alliance Coalition for Justice and Police Reform, Portland Police Association, Portland Human Rights Commission, Portland Commission on Disability, and Don't Shoot Portland on the progress of PPB, ensuring constitutional policing and adherence to the civil rights of all people in Portland, PPB Police Community Relations, PPB Accountability, Restructuring and Reforms required by the settlement agreement, and any other additional items.
Okay.
Can I have a copy?
I'm looking to see if we might have captured some of that in another
Okay.
section, because it seemed to me you're really talking about our public outreach and our reporting on what we're doing to various groups. Shikari?
I'm not trying to be offensive to anyone. I was hoping that all the language and everything was already gonna kind of be done. I'm not an attorney. I don't understand all these word changes and everything. My goal coming here was, if there was a problem, whether it's in here or not, we could talk about it and have open communication, whether it's on a racial matter, a mental illness, a policy, a training, whatever. We can just talk. Because I think that if we're gonna sit here for hours on end, moving words around, kind of just wasting our time here. I haven't even got to even speak to everyone that's on the board to get to know everybody. The people that I did speak to, I felt like I got a really good communication and got to make some really good relationships, but I feel like we all kind of know the purpose of why we're all here and that we need to start to open communication, but I don't really feel like what we're talking about is communication because I don't even understand what some of these words are even.
You don't want to wordsmith this document to death. is
I
your
went
point.
to college.
Yeah.
I know how to read, but I would like, instead of talking about these technical terms, let's just do it layman terms so everybody understands what we're talking about.
I think that's what we're trying to do, is just make it simple though, because when you have 40 people, 30 people, then we want it to be consistent language, and it does take that when you're doing these type of things.
I understand that. What I'm saying is whether it's in there or not, I think we're all in agreement. I don't think we're going to shut anyone out if it's not stated in here that we're not going to talk about something. I think that if anyone has a problem or a question, just because it's not in here, we're not going to not speak about it. No one's going to be shut out.
That's not the case. That's the problem now.
But that's what we're trying to fix.
Right, but we need to have the language. It's all legal.
But that's what I'm saying. I think that we have professionals here that I would hope we could
No,
have
it's
that
the
done.
group, it's the advisory group, and so we have to come to an agreement amongst us that what we're gonna agree to is what everybody is comfortable with, and so we just need to be flexible and open, because that is communication, is getting to know a person's spirit and what their intent behind what they want to communicate at large.
I agree.
Okay, good.
B?
Graduate from high school.
I'm just saying, and you're talking about things, I'm like, wow, like, don't.
What's amazing is that I've had the good fortune of talking to at least 10 community members over 7 different neighborhoods in Portland that have so graciously spent their time to help me interpret and sort of create some new interpretations and perceptions regarding the bylaws. And so I'm just doing my best to represent those people authentically. So I hope that makes sense for you.
Let me ask a question of the group. Did I have an expectation that can't be realized tonight?
Yeah.
Let's, Alicia?
I think probably the best way, I think that there's a lot of competence in the room. I think that there's a lot of folks with really great ideas, and I think the best way to capitalize on that in a very judicious way is for all of those recommendations to be solidified and made in one working document, and maybe we come back to revisit it, and also in a format that people can sort of read and digest. That would be my recommendation, that we want to make sure that everyone is heard, their thoughts are included, and that everyone has sort of a chance to react and respond, so that when we actually come to the meeting, we can say, I've read that, I accept that as written, or let's make some recommendations, and maybe you could give a timeline for the feedback that you want to receive, and a cutoff. We'd like you to respond by this time, and then come back with a recommendation for when you would respond with including all of that feedback to the group, saying we've incorporated all of the feedback, here's the final sort of draft or working draft, and to get people's perceptions. Because I think, I appreciate Officer Jackson's sentiments, and I know that what he meant to say was, is that he
Yeah, right. I love that.
Is that he wants to make certain that everyone is heard and everyone's opinions are included, and that it makes sense to the group in a way that can be absorbed and useful. So we want to, this is an exercise sort of in utility, and we want to be judicious with the time at the table.
I think that's a good news, bad news. The good news is that all of you are interested and engaged in this process.
Right.
The bad news is that my expectation was probably a little beyond what we can do, given the seriousness with which everyone has looked at this. I'm used to this in my serving 23 years in a collegial court, where we have this kind of discussion. I'm willing, if the group would agree with this, I'm willing to take all the comments we have, prepare a new proposed on one document. I'll do some wordsmithing that will give everybody the opportunity, and then maybe set a timeline, as Dr. Moreland indicated, and then we will be able. And we're not going to really vote on anything tonight anyway, so it's an okay thing to do, and then try to get this so we're in a final phase when we do that. Does that sound okay to people? Yeah. Ms. Medina?
So my name is Maria. I think people call me Ms. Medina when they don't know my first name. Well, I just have some questions about, or I don't know if it's a question or maybe a suggestion about like the function of alternate members in this process, because we are not voting members. So what can we do to help the process of like creating language or changing language or agreeing to it, because we're not really allowed to vote on what actually makes it into the bylaws. So do we just find a buddy that's like and like I talk to my friends about like how do we do this?
Well, first of all, our example was Mr. Steenson, who is an alternate who proposed some significant changes, and the group considered all those and will. So I think that's the easy answer to that.
So just make suggestions through email or however we're moving
we'll
forward.
make sure. I assume there are the alternative or the alternate members on the list. So Maria will make sure that you're included in that.
Let's send them
Rabbi?
directly to you, not to the group.
I'm really fine to follow your suggestion of deferring this, but I understand, Officer, that there's often a tension between the desire to do something and the desire to kind of prepare to do something. And one of the things that I found is that foundational documents really matter. And I would just emphasize that there's much of this document that I'm glad that we're not getting a salary, that's fine. But those components are not really important. The purpose and function, I think, are crucially important. And actually, I think getting the language right really matters. If there, again, to use something I mentioned, if there's no mention of racial bias in our purpose, we're not going to talk about it. It's just not in our scope. So if we feel that's important, then I just really want to get that on paper, so that we all kind of know what it is that we're doing.
Thank you. Bud?
So what I think I hear, and fantastic suggestion, is that you're, as the COCL, you're going to coalesce the commentary. You're going to then issue it out to the membership to review and comment and discuss. With a deadline, excellent point. And then we're going to come back here and vote. So the only question I'd ask you is to keep in keeping with open records, et cetera, do we need to make sure in those email communications that we may have offline that there's always the COCL included in that distribution?
They should go directly to me.
Yeah, so to be clear, we're having a discussion of a particular comment in the document. Did you just say that we should just, as we discuss that amongst ourselves, that we should copy you in, or that we have to discuss it through you?
You need to send, if you have a comment about, once I send out this document, I think the best way to avoid any trouble is to send your comment directly to me. Okay? And then we'll, pardon? Well, I think directly to me. Do you have
I think
a-
what you're saying is no discussion over email, send your feedback to have a final document that's brought to the next meeting
Right.
for final
And
discussion.
Amy, we'll have every comment that's made in a document so that we can discuss whatever didn't make it in or needs to go in. Does that,
Can I just clarify?
Yeah.
It seems to me that everyone should have a chance to comment on the revised document that
Correct.
you're gonna send, and then at least go back directly to you.
yes.
Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah. And hopefully, you'll be able to resolve the differences
Well,
between.
I hope, and then we'll have it at our meeting next.
I hope you are cloning yourself.
Well, actually, I see this as a really, a great opportunity and a challenge to try, that's part of what I did in my life, was trying to satisfy 6 other people who had a vote. Okay?
I just wanted to clarify what the role is for anyone in the public who would like to provide input into the process. Like, I think it's wonderful that V was able to go out and solicit and get feedback from community members that she knew, and you know, there may be things that come up that whatever number of us haven't thought of, or there's a different take. So how to get that kind of feedback would be my question.
And who's got, this is new for all of us. We don't have really, as Mr. Geisler said, this is an innovative experience. I just think the thing we need to avoid is the discussion of policy through the email process. That would violate I think. Sharon?
I've created a Facebook page for the community and asked them to comment and put suggestions, and if they like to meet and have discussions, so that as we are going over the information, that, you know, I can solicit that from them if they can't make it here to the meetings. And I also put the times and dates and the location for the meetings as well.
I think it's completely consistent with our role to have public outreach.
Yep.
And so that could be easily part of that. V?
Darn, I forgot the first one, but the second one is, oh, that's right. So I'm working right now in creating a forum with Portland Media, where if people actually want to come down to Portland Media and discuss their views, they can do that and have that aired, I guess, on Sundays potentially. Is that right? Yeah. And then there was something else that I'll remember maybe in 45 seconds.
Did you have?
I think it's super awesome that there are all these different forums that folks have. And the one word I want to throw out there is coordinated effort. And so that will really be really awesome to sort of communicate. And that's why I think it's important to sort of make sure that the COCL is made aware of all of these efforts so that we actually can support it in a coordinated fashion. So to hear that there's a Facebook page, or that there's Portland Media, there are meetings, or it would be nice to have sort of a streamlined way to share all of those outreach efforts, since that is sort of what we are at the table to do as well. And so I'm saying,
I was just gonna say, so Amy's put together a Facebook and a website. And I think probably the most efficient way to make sure that all those channels come together might be a small subcommittee working with Amy to sort of promulgate all of that. I'm sure there's people like myself who have expertise either in web design or marketing or media that might want to work with Amy to do that. And I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
V?
So I just want to be clear. So funnel stuff to Amy's Facebook COAB page, cool? Okay, and then I also have a Facebook page too. So that was the other 45-second dealio. That's it.
Okay, so just to sum up, make sure we've got this. I will take the laboring oar to look at all of the comments that we have received, to draft a new document that is intended to incorporate those all to the extent they're consistent with the settlement agreement and our purpose in what we're doing. I will circulate that document to everyone. There'll be a deadline for comments back, and then I will try, based on those comments, to do one more document to bring to the group at our next meeting. Okay? All right. Corey?
Would it be too much bother to recirculate that last document? I'm finding the email process very helpful in terms of making sure we get
Our
information before we
facilitator
go.
will be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Great. Why don't we take 10 minutes, a little 10-minute break, and then we'll resume. Thank you.